Hello guests, it's the host, and today I will discuss 5 horror games that are perfect for newcomers. I was thinking about how I got into horror games and why I love them, and I immediately thought about creating this video. I have had comments that said that they like to watch my channel but are too afraid to play a horror game. I know how it feels to be interested in something yet to be scared to try it. For example, I am fascinated with the engineering that goes into constructing roller coasters, yet I'm afraid to go on them. This video aims to introduce 5 horror games to newcomers to the horror genre while also explaining the different types of horror games. If you hate horror games and are not open-minded to try them, this video is not for you. If you're on the fence and are curious about horror games, you've come to the right place. There are many subgenres within horror gaming. It's not some broad genre where all horror games play the same. You have survival horror, walking sim horror, psychological horror, jump scare horror, action horror, PvP horror, and stealth horror. The 3 main subgenres of horror you will see the most are survival, action, and walking sim. Survival horror involves managing healing items and ammo. This kind of horror stresses the player out by giving them more than one thing to worry about. Sweet Home is the first survival horror game developed by Capcom in 1989. Capcom is the godfather of survival horror and redefined the genre with Resident Evil on the PS1 in 1996. Action horror is when the player can fight against horrifying monsters like zombies, mutants, or other creatures. Action horror is not as scary as survival or walking sim horror games because you can protect yourself without worrying about item management. However, you can be overwhelmed by the number of enemies you encounter. Walking sim horror is when the player needs to get from point A to B while getting jump scared or chased. These types of horror games typically burn slower than survival horror or action horror, as all you do is walk around and complete objectives. I constructed this list with the mindset of someone who has never touched a horror game. Let me know what you guys think of this list in the comments below. Outlast is a stealth-based first-person horror game where you must run and hide from enemies. You play investigative journalist Miles Upshur, who receives an email about inhumane experiments being performed on patients at Mount Massive Asylum. You must record what happens at Mount Massive to expose the Murkoff Corporation. Outlast has a found footage style where you are only armed with a camcorder with night vision. You cannot engage enemies in combat, as all you can do is run and hide. I suggest this to a newcomer to build up the tolerance to play other horror games. The tense situations and foot chases are the stars of this game. You will constantly be on your toes, trying to not attract attention to yourself, while also trying to reserve your camera batteries. The game is also not long, as it takes 5 hours for the average player to complete it. Outlast is available on Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation digital stores, and can be bought for as little as $5 when it's on sale. Left 4 Dead 2 is a 4-player co-op survival horror game where you can fight against hordes of the undead. It is also an FPS horde shooter, which can appeal to people who enjoy FPS shooters like COD or CSGO. Left 4 Dead 2 is the Michael Jordan of zombie horde shooters. There are a lot of games similar to Left 4 Dead 2, but Left 4 Dead 2 is still the best and holds up today. This game is not a narrative type of game. It's a simple game where you boot it up, play a match, and have a great time. There are many different maps and 8 game modes that you can play. My favorite game mode is survival mode, where you must hold out against hordes of zombies for as long as possible. It's not the scariest game, but it's fun to play with friends and a great way to get into survival horror. You can buy this game for $10 on the Steam store or wait for a sale and buy it for $2. For $10, Left 4 Dead 2 has a lot of value within its game modes and different mods that you can install. Overall, this game is a perfect game to play casually with a friend or by yourself with bots. I take that back, don't play this game with bots, the bots are stupid. The original Resident Evil 2 was released in 1998 on the PlayStation 1, and later ported to the N64, Dreamcast, and GameCube. It was regarded as one of the greatest survival horror games. However, it had fixed camera angles, tank controls, and dated voice acting, which can be a turnoff for some people. In 2019, Resident Evil 2 was released with a third-person over-the-shoulder camera angle, better voice acting, and smoother game controls. Resident Evil 2 takes place in Raccoon City, and you play rookie cop Leon Kennedy, who must survive against the zombie apocalypse happening within Raccoon City. Overall simple premise for a fantastic game. The Resident Evil 2 remake improves in many areas that the original failed on, however it does not overshadow it. Both games stand on their own while telling a similar story. If you are interested in playing Resident Evil and want to know the lore behind the most memorable games, Resident Evil 2 Remake is a great place to start. You don't need to play the first game to enjoy Resident Evil 2 Remake, as both games are self-contained. You can get Resident Evil 2 Remake on the Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One Series X and S, PC, and even iOS. Soma is a walking sim horror game made by Friction Games, who also created Amnesia: The Dark Descent. For those of you who don't know, Amnesia: The Dark Descent is the game that kicked off Markiplier's YouTube career in horror gaming Let's Plays. Soma is as thought-provoking as it is scary. If you want to have a fantastic narrative experience, look no further than here. I don't want to spoil the game's premise because I believe you need to go fully blind to immerse yourself in the world building this game offers. This game is one of the best walking sim horror games I have played, and it profoundly affected me. As of recording this, you can buy Soma on the PlayStation digital stores for $6. Otherwise, the full retail price is $30. You can play Soma on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and the Nintendo Switch. Resident Evil 7 is a first-person survival horror game made by Capcom. You play Ethan Winters, who gets a message from his wife who has been missing for 3 years. The message leads you to a derelict plantation in Dovey, Louisiana, but you soon realize things are taking a turn for the worst. It was my first Resident Evil game, and it introduced me to the world of Resident Evil. This game is perfect because you don't need prior knowledge of the previous games. This game stands on its own and delivers a spectacular horror experience that revived the Resident Evil franchise back to its horror roots. It came out in 2017 and still holds up to this day. Resident Evil 7 also has a VR mode for the PS4, which has also held up very well. Because it's also a first-person shooter, it can appeal to people who like COD or other types of first-person shooter games. If I had to choose between the Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 7, I would pick Resident Evil 7 because the first-person camera angle makes the horror more terrifying and intense while feeling more personal than the previous entries. So I know the video said that there was going to be 5 games that I'm going to be recommending, but I'm going to recommend one more game for psychological horror. Now, I know that I talk about the Silent Hill 2 Remake a lot on this channel, a matter of fact, too many times for most people, so I'm going to recommend you play the Silent Hill HD Collection. Don't click off the video, hold on, wait a minute, let me finish, please. The HD Collection is the only viable way to play the original Silent Hill 2 games legally. I know it is not the most prettiest, and it's not the most functional version of the PlayStation 2 Classic, but it also includes Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3, and at least for Silent Hill 2 you can have the option to have the original voice actors. If anything, it performs a lot better on the Xbox Series X and S because it has improved frame rate, anisotropic filtering, and all those stuff that Xbox does for its older games. It actually enhances the older games. You can buy the HD collection for $10 when it's on sale. It's $30 right now, and I would recommend people play that so they can understand a true survival horror title. Silent Hill 2 has the greatest story of all time. Although the remake does a good job reinterpreting the source material, you can't beat the original. You just can't beat the original. As much as I would love to just sit here and just tell you how amazing the remake is, I feel like you should play the original to understand and appreciate how good a game it is. And then perhaps maybe you'll appreciate the remake or hate it like some people. So those are the 5 games that I would recommend to newcomers to the horror gaming genre. I will admit that horror gaming is not an easy genre to invest in, especially if you get scared easily. I pick games that are not as hardcore or difficult to play like the original Silent Hill game or Resident Evil 1. I may list the best horror games in another video, but for now, I want newcomers to build up the tolerance to play more hardcore horror games, or even indie horror games. Let me know in the comments below what games will be perfect for newcomers. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and subscribe if you enjoyed your stay at the Silent Lounge.